Booker T was looked at as a Tom, you know. But he was a skillful man. He knew how to manipulate white supremacy. Now, if you understand white supremacy and you want to get your people through, you have to know how to manipulate white supremacy. And you know, white people like to feel like they the boss. They want to feel like they massa. So if you want to get by and move your people by, Booker T said, look, drop your bucket down where you stand and learn how to be of service. White man needed brick masons, he needed farmers, he needed agriculture, he needed animal husbandry, he needed steel, people working in steel. So he wanted black people to make themselves useful because he knew something about the nature of the enemy. When his mother is no longer useful, he put her away. So you know when you're no longer useful, he got to find a way to get rid of you. You hear me? Now, when mama gets to the point where mama is suffering from dementia and these kinds of things, that's a test on her children. And the Holy Quran so beautifully teaches us how to respond to our mothers. You know, it said, don't even say to your mother as much as, like you're displeased with her. And then the Quran says, and lower your wing out of humility and remember that she cared for you when you were young. When you didn't have the ability to care for yourself, mama washed your little dirty butt and rubbed you down and woke up in the middle of the night to take the cover off of your face, heard you crying, daddy snoring, wrecking the house with the vibration of the snore. But mama can't sleep. The baby needs something. So when mama is not able to do what mama used to do, that's the test for the children to step to the plate and look out for mama like mama and daddy looked out for us. But white folk is different. What's wrong with my mom? Well, she can't remember. Well, and ain't there a house somewhere we can put her? Some of us are like that too. But my point is, if you're not useful in this society, you have no value. And when you have no value, your humanity is diminished because you're non-useful. So they find ways to get rid of what they cannot use. Now, if you see it the other day, Assalamu alaikum, Tariq. How are you, son? Good. The other day, the coach of Notre Dame, a black coach, he thought it was great that he was called to be the coach of the Irish. That's right. And he did fairly well for the Irish, but in 3 years, he was not able to bring that team back to become the football powerhouse that it was, and thank you very much, but you're fired. they learned those words from Donald Trump, I'm sure. That even though you're well paid in sports, you are a well-paid commodity.
Yes, sir.
And when you have no more use for the team, they don't remember you, Michael Jordan, when you were Air Jordan. You know what I mean? You can't get up now? Well, okay. Well, see? Now, my point is, Booker T. Washington wanted us to make ourselves useful so that the wicked side of the nature of white supremacy wouldn't move to be destructive of our very lives and our persons. So many of us who were growing intellectually didn't understand the psychology of Booker T. Washington. So out of the intellectual community emerged W.E.B. Du Bois. And W.E.B. Du Bois talked about the talented 10th, that we should learn history and social studies and be able to compete with the white man on every intellectual level. Well, now he's getting dangerous now. So W.E.B. Du Bois became a dangerous man because he wanted black people to learn the things that would make them able to compete with white people, and that is a no-no. You must never compete with white people. You must always remember your place. And your place is always under them, not equal to them, and certainly not ahead of them. And when you begin to think that you are equal and then outdo them, you become an uppity nigger, and they got something for you then.
Think about it.
Okay? So when Brother Garvey came along, he started the UNIA, the United, is it?
Negro.
Universal Negro Improvement Association. Negro Improvement Association. The nerve of him. Gonna improve what the slave master made to serve him. We got to get rid of this Negro talking about he want to improve my niggers. If you're going to improve my niggers, they won't be my niggers no more. I cannot have a universal Negro Improvement Association. You know? So they trumped up charges on Mr. Garvey. Since he was from Jamaica, they arrested him and sent him to federal prison in Atlanta, and then they deported him. And then they broke his movement and destroyed really the idea of Garvey. Okay? Now, Garvey was beckoning Du Bois to Africa. And Du Bois, in the early days of his development, was against what Garvey was talking. But the interesting thing is, Garvey died in England, and Du Bois died in Africa. And Du Bois died producing the history of our people's greatness and accomplishments, see, so that his life would have meaning beyond the time of his physical passing, that we could read the sacrifice of a man to learn something about us that would really improve us. So he became a leader in the Negro Improvement Association without joining, in that he gave us knowledge that raised our level of consciousness. then Noble Drew Ali, a great black brother, started teaching Islam. Newark, New Jersey was the hotbed of the Moorish science temples. See, now the enemy really in trouble because Islam is now present. When I first heard Brother Malcolm, he was talking about a writer called Lothrop Stoddard and a book that he wrote, The Rising Tide of Color Against White Supremacy. And in that book, Lothrop Stoddard wrote of Islam and how Islam seemed to bring out the militant propensities of black people. So we don't want no Muslim niggas because them is going to be some militant niggas, and we don't want to. Now we have a problem with these improvement niggas. Now they're going to improve and become militant too. So they got rid of our brother Noble Drew Ali. He was murdered. Then came Master Farrakhan Muhammad. You may not know this man, but Master Farrakhan Muhammad, an Arab with a white mother and a black father, he was made that way by his father so that he could come among us without being detected. Meaning he would look white, like the movie Pinky, but he would be a black man, like Adam Clayton Powell, like Ralph Bunche. He could walk among white people and they would think he was one of them, so they would speak. He was among us 20 years before he made himself known. And what were you doing, Master Farrakhan Muhammad? I'm studying the nature of the two people so that I can raise black people from the condition that they're in.
Yes, sir.
By what means and method are you going to raise them? I'm going to come at them in a way that fits their condition. Now, if you were back in the early 30s when Master Farrakhan Muhammad showed up in Detroit, in Black Bottom, Detroit,
Yes, sir.
as a salesman with silk on his hand, knocking on the doors. Black women, their men was in the factories, the women at home. He knocked. Sister come to the door and see this light-skinned man with straight hair. Lord have mercy. Who is this man at my door? What is you selling, honey? And he said, sister, I'm bringing you silk from your people in the East. Huh? People's in the East. I don't know nothing about no sisters and family in the East. What East you talking about? He said, well, sister, if you would come to a meeting tonight, I will tell you about your people in the East. And that's how the mosque got started in Detroit. He started teaching us about ourselves. Now, you may disagree with his methodology, but it worked.
That's right. Come on.
He said, who the original man. We ain't never heard no talk like that. What you mean original man? The man who is the base of all human beings. And he gave the answer since we didn't know it. The original man is the Asiatic black man, the maker, the owner, the cream of the planet Earth, God of the universe. Stop right there. I mean, here this white-looking man talking to us about the glory of being black. Now, some Muslims will say, oh, that's horrible. That is so un-Islamic. You know that there's no color in Islam. Shut up. How you going to tell me keep it real and say that there's no color when God created everything and gave it color? In the Quran, it talks about Adam as the father of all human beings, and he describes Adam. He was made from black mud and fashioned into shape. So if Adam, the father of all human beings, was made from black mud, he couldn't have been a white man. It's genetically, mathematically impossible for a white man to produce black offspring. So he started teaching us that we were the first of God's creation. And then he said the colored man or Caucasian is the devil. Now some of us say, oh my God. When we came to the mosque where he was teaching, there was a blackboard in the mosque. And it had on the right looking out, had an American flag, a cross, and it had in the center a question mark. Which one will survive the war of Armageddon, with the flag of Islam on the left looking out, and under Christianity it had slavery, suffering, and death, with a black man hanging from a tree. And under Islam it had freedom, justice, and equality. Stop right there. Now, if you present that to our people today, oh my God. See? But what have we experienced from white Christians? Talk to me. Come on, come on, come on. Why are you Second Baptist? You ain't First Baptist. In every city there's a Second Baptist church, but you never the First Baptist church. It's because white folk mistreated black people in the church, so they went out and formed Second Baptist Church. They mistreated us in the Methodist Church, so we went out of the Methodist Church and formed CME and AME. We walked out of the white church and formed the Pentecostal movement, the Church of God in Christ. But you had to come out of them in order to be yourself. Boy, this is heavy stuff now. After Farad Muhammad left, we were left with Elijah. And after 20 years, let me see, from 1930 in the 40s, late 40s, Malcolm X was converted in prison. And then the Nation of Islam began to grow. And that militance that represented black Islam started manifesting. Now watch this. At the same time that Malcolm is emerging, Martin King is coming out of Boston University. A brilliant, scholarly brother, but wanting to integrate. And Elijah Muhammad and Malcolm said, no, we don't integrate. We separate from this enemy, because that's what the scripture says will ultimately take place. He's going to separate the sheep from the goat, the wheat from the tare, the righteous from the wicked, and we don't want to be with the wicked, so we want to separate from them. So Malcolm was preaching separation, Martin was preaching integration, and between these two dynamics, electricity sparking. Then black folks start getting stimulated. What's this? Malcolm saying the white man is the devil. And Martin saying he's our brother, but he ain't right. And Elijah Muhammad now single-handedly began changing the language. Before that, we was Negroes, we was colored people. But he told us colored is the past participle of the verb to color, which means to change from its original state. He said it's the white man that's the colored man, because he came out of us, and the process of his coming out of us, which was called grafting, caused him to be white. White philosophers say there's no such thing as a white person. Every white person is a bleached out or faded black man. But they don't want to talk about the process that bleached it. And when you bleach something, you didn't hear me. When you bleach something, you take out of it the thing that would make it like it was originally, and you make it into another kind of creation. So the original man is one kind of man, then you have mankind, a kind of a human being. Okay, now all of you grew to love Malcolm, right? Come on, come on, come on. But Malcolm was beating the hell out of white people. That's right. He would be on WLIB arguing with Bayard Rustin and the rest of the integrationists, and he was whipping them coming and going. And black people in Harlem were rocking. Get him, Malcolm, get him. And he would have street rallies out here. And the police would come and he'd say them crackers, and he would write on them and whatnot and whatnot. You see them all turning red and green and blue. And black people shouting, go ahead, Malcolm, go on. All of a sudden now, we stopped using Negro, because when I was coming up, if a man called you an MF, but black was in front of it, you beat him not for calling you an MF, just for calling you black. What you call me? Now the language change took place in the late 50s, early 60s. We began to use the term black. And then our brother from Georgia, James Brown, I'm black and I'm proud. Young, gifted and black, Nina Simone. Now the cultural community is working with black. Oh, see, now black people rising with a different kind of view of themselves. Now you really got a Negro Improvement Association going, because we're coming into our own now. And white folk don't know how to deal with this new black woman, this new black man. Now we're militant enough to challenge segregation. So Rosa said, to hell with this.
Right.
I ain't moping. I'm tired and I'm going to sit down. I said, nigga, you better get to the back of the bus. I said, not today. Now this militant spirit catching on now. White folks said, this got to stop. So Bull Connor putting fire hose on us, putting cattle prods, dogs on us. But national TV was showing that. So I could be in Boston, you could be in Hartford, somebody else in Jackson, Mississippi, somebody in Indianapolis. We're all seeing the same thing. Black folk being beaten in the streets of America for wanting to integrate a lunch counter. Did you know how you create a national community? It starts by shared attitudes. Listen to me carefully. And attitudes harden into a system of beliefs. And out of beliefs come ideology. And from ideology, meaning an idea that becomes predominant, a national community starts developing. And just on the language of black, a new attitude was developing among us toward one another. How you doing, brother, man? That's my black brother. Now you didn't see the Caribbean as them West Indians. You said, that's my black brother from Jamaica. My black brother from Haiti. My black brother from Martinique and Guadeloupe and Trinidad and Tobago and the Virgin Islands. You didn't see nothing different. I had a brother come up from Panama, and we had wrote a song, "A white man's heaven is a black man's hell." And the brother came up from Panama saying, "A white man's heaven is a black man's hell. Soon we're going to take back the Panama Canal." In Costa Rica, in Guatemala, in Honduras, in Brazil, where there's 80 to 100 million black people, we didn't see them as Portuguese or speaking a strange language. We saw them as our family. And then when the UN came and Tom Mboya and the brothers from Africa started coming, you see us going around the UN inviting our African brothers and sisters up, and they would come with their pretty robes, and we had never seen robes like that before. And all of a sudden black people wanted to take off the white man's garment and put on a dashiki, and the sisters want to take off the white man's garment and put on a booba or something. Something African. So the Negro Improvement Association was getting on now. The talented 10th was moving, and the drop your bucket down where you are was moving, and one aim, one God, one destiny. Africa moving. White folks scared to death. The niggas is rising. We got a problem. So Martin became the lesser of two evils. And the civil rights movement, they didn't want to deal with Malcolm and Elijah. They didn't want to deal with the Panthers. They didn't want to deal with the deacons for defense. Because the deacons for defense said, no, baby, let me tell you something. You come up here with that stuff, we gonna blow you away. And they had their guns, and when the marchers of the civil rights movement, the nonviolent group, would be marching, the deacons for defense was marching with them, but they had their pieces at the ready. So white folks seeing all of this, they said, this is horrible. This is terrible. So Malcolm gets murdered in 65. Big depression on black people. It was an internal dispute with Malcolm and the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, but all of it nurtured, developed by the FBI. There were internal dynamics between Maulana Karenga and his group called Us and the Panther Party. And they put us to fighting each other because that's the only way the enemy can survive, is to put us